You know the date is. Now, Chris Duel.
Labor Day is over. Most people will tell you summer is over, but it's a short week. It's a Taco Tuesday, and it is a week that will bring us Dallas Cowboys football a little over 48 hours from now as we bask in the glory of a beautiful Labor Day weekend featuring great college football, great victory for the Texas Longhorns and Steve Sarkisian's maiden voyage, UTSA with a big win, lots of big college football action. Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Shannon, let's start with your alma mater, the Texas Longhorns. I'm looking on the live video feed. You are appropriately sporting Texas Longhorns burnt orange gear. How'd you feel about that big 38-18 victory?
Overall, I felt hot, Chris. I don't think I've ever sweated so much at a Texas game. It was almost miserable, aside from the fact that I was just excited to be there, excited to take in a game after not going for a season, thanks to that little thing known as COVID. But it was a great game. It was a great first showing. I think we're in store for a great season for Texas. And, there wasn't a lot of flash to it, but they got the job done, which is what you want to see. The one disappointing thing to me, aside from the sound system that's still, you can't hear a thing that's being said, is we have this new end zone. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if it's because it was so hot that the main chairs around that Longhorn outline, that's so cool, in the new end zone, they have access to a special air-conditioned club area. And I don't blame them for being in there nearly the entire time, but it made it look really empty, especially when everyone's already looking towards that area because that's where the scoreboard is. And so, I don't know, it wasn't like the big grand opening that I think a lot of people had hoped for. But again, I don't blame those people because I probably would have been in the air conditioning too had I had access to it.
Yeah, but you think about it, Shannon, and now with Texas. Now we know Texas and OU are headed to the SEC. I think of those SEC schools. I can't imagine an Alabama or pretty much any SEC school that just fills the place up for college football. Even if you've got an air-conditioned option to go into, I can't imagine them doing that and leaving empty seats with a view of the football field. That just sounds a little. Granted, it was opening day, but you make the point. This was such a big game. Sark's first game. It's like it's a whole new era beginning, as you mentioned, because of COVID. It's been over a year since you were in that building. So you would hope, that I everywhere else in that stadium, I'm assuming it was pretty rabid.
I mean, my section is like the alumni section, so it's usually pretty full, but the areas where that students are supposed to be, that was pretty empty. There was a good showing by some Louisiana fans, but they were pretty scattered throughout their section. So hopefully we'll start to get those seats filled as the weather gets a little bit better, and maybe I don't know who they're waiting to see. It's not like we've got I don't know, the biggest game of the year is always played in Dallas, so I don't know who they're waiting for to see that's going to convince 100,000 plus to come join all the fun and action. But it looks nice.
Yeah,
whether there's people in it or not.
There you go. Well, and again, winning cures many ills.
Yes.
And to get this first win against Louisiana was big. We talked about it. Even Dave Campbell's Texas football, I think, picked them to lose this. There were some people picking them to lose this one outright, and Louisiana coming in at number 23, Texas coming in at number 21. You get an opening win to start the Sark era against a ranked team in your house. So it's and my goodness, 38-18. That's, you get the 20-point win. That's, I think, impressive all the way around. Now, with your own eyes, you got to see, obviously, Hudson Card start. 14 of 21, 224 yards, couple of touchdowns, no picks, thank goodness. But Casey Thompson also gets in on the action, 4 of 5, 41 yards and a touchdown, no picks for Casey Thompson. As you looked at both of these quarterbacks, Shannon, what were your impressions?
I think they definitely display a little bit more trust in Hudson Card. I mean, by the time Casey got in there wasn't a lot of throwing to be done. They tried to get it done on the ground, and they were also rotating the running backs a little more frequently there in the last half of the game. But I thought Hudson looked really great, really strong. That's a lot for a kid from the area to step in and become the quarterback of the University of Texas, and then to do it with all the other things that are going on. I can't imagine what was going through his mind. I thought he looked very comfortable out there. We didn't see a lot of, I guess, like those first kind of game jitters out of him. He looked to settle down pretty quickly, and obviously Bijan with the run game was excellent. And we deferred. I say Texas deferred, and
you can say we.
And the defense went out there and did what they did, and we get the ball back on a punt. And the disappointing thing was just Deshaun Jameson ran it all the way back for a tutty, and I think he was the only one on the field at the time who didn't realize there were some flags thrown. And I think as a Texas fan, it was super deflating because you're cheering your heart out because, oh my God, this is happening. It's the first kind of offensive possession, and then you're like, oh, it's the same thing. You're still unnecessary penalties. But by the end of game's end, penalty wise, it looked a lot better than in years past. And all we can ask for is improvement.
Yeah, you mentioned Bijan Robinson, a very, very nice day, 100 yards, 20 carries, 103 yards, 5.2 yards per carry, got a touchdown. He's going to be counted on quite a bit this season, it appears, but it looks to me like a nice mix of passing and running the football. It looked like a pretty balanced attack on Saturday for the Longhorns.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. The Cameron Dicker is taking on both roles as punter and kicker, and which he did a little bit of last year, but I think that was due to an injury to the punter. And I'm watching him on the sideline, and sometimes he's practicing punts and sometimes he's practicing kicks. And he was practicing punts before he went out there and missed that first field goal. So I just wonder if maybe because later on I only saw him practicing kicking field goals on the sideline. So that'll be interesting. I've never played that position. I don't know, I guess footwork wise, or maybe I don't know what practicing punts may have done for that kick, but that was a very rare miss from him, and it was also rare because it was the first field goal attempt of the season.
Well, and that's a very interesting point because you would think kickers in particular probably have their own rhythm and routine,
right,
and game day routine. And because you've added punting to his plate now, it's one more thing to worry about. And so clearly this was a different game day routine for him, and he's always been so successful as a kicker. So for him to, then go out and miss that first kick, that sounds like perhaps it did affect what he was doing because it changed his routine on game day. So We'll talk a lot more Longhorns throughout the morning. We will get into the UTSA Roadrunners. They had a big win. Speaking of the Longhorns and the Roadrunners, we've got Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. That'll be just after 8 o'clock. So we'll dive deeper into the Texas Longhorns. And Andy Everett, he had that call for UTSA in their opening victory in Champaign, Illinois, over Illinois. Andy Everett going to join us just after 8:30. I did mention the live video stream. If you're new to the show, you can join us via video in addition to over-the-air radio or the iHeart Radio app. So a couple of ways, actually 3 ways you can dive into the video. Facebook Live, either AM 1300 The Zone's Facebook page or Ticket 760's Facebook page. We've got a YouTube link into the live video stream and Twitch. Our soundscape stylist, Shannon, the maybe the biggest
Injury
injury of the weekend I found out was to Dave Ayler. Dave, you were injured over the weekend. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I'm playing hurt today. I was sitting around the house yesterday and I go, how can I get out of mowing the lawn and doing any exercise for the entire week? And my foot said, why don't you break a toe?
Ooh.
And the chair said, I can help you with that. And pretty much ripped that little toe back to almost off my foot.
Oh my God.
So it was the pinky toe.
Yep. Oh yeah.
So actually broken.
It's
Broken toe.
it's not moving.
Well, I mean, did you go to the doctor?
No.
Still there, right?
Yeah, it's still attached. But the last time I broke that toe, it was like 15 years ago, and I went to the doctor and they took an X-ray and they said, yeah, it's broken. I go, okay. They go, okay.
That'll be $3,000.
Then they say, well, have a nice day. I go, aren't you going to do anything? He goes, well, we can give you crutches if you want.
Wow.
And I go, aren't you going to put like in a boot or something? He goes, no, toe, not for a toe, because we only do that for a foot. I go, can I get any like fun painkillers or something? And they said, not for a toe now. I go, well, I can just stay home and do this. So when it happened this time, I'm not doing anything.
So are you
painkillers for my job?
Yeah, exactly.
They don't have to know what your job is.
So do you wear a shoe today? I mean, what do you do? How are you treating it?
Just trying to not walk as much, which is pretty painful, and you think we have a long walk from the front of the building to back here. Try doing it with a busted toe.
Oh my goodness.
And it hurts. It's not throbbing. Last night it woke me up like about 9 o'clock and it was just throbbing like crazy. And I put some ice on it and now it's not throbbing, but it still hurts. And I'm still limping around.
Well, we're sorry you're in pain and playing hurt, but
I still made it in.
You did. Playing hurt made it in. It's a beautiful thing. Thanks for being here. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
As always. So we'll talk a lot of college football, obviously, Shannon. But this is the week for the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It is Thursday night. That is 2 nights from now, 7:20, your start time on NBC. And the Cowboys over the weekend get some bad news. We've talked about how that offense, if healthy, is a key component as to what the Cowboys need to do this season. And one of their best guys, arguably maybe the best guy on that offensive line, Zach Martin, tests positive for COVID. He will be out. Not good news when you're facing the defending Super Bowl champions in their house and they're returning everybody from their Super Bowl victory.
Not great, Bob. Not great.
Oh.
It's what came first, because you were the one that alerted me to the blue jerseys.
Oh God, that too.
And if the blue jerseys came first, and then this announcement
they did,
came,
because when I did see, because somebody posted when as soon as I heard the Zach Martin news, I retweeted it, and then so somebody jumped in and said, "Oh, it's the blue jersey jinx. That's what it is." So we've got not only the blue jersey jinx, and we learned over the weekend, Shannon, that the Cowboys will be wearing their blue jerseys on Thursday night, but the Sports Illustrated jinx. So you've got Dak on the cover of Sports Illustrated jinx, and now you got the blue jersey jinx. So, and then boom, Zach Martin gets COVID.
Listen, is it too late to change the jerseys for Thursday? I feel like it's not.
I don't think it is, but
you have the power to fix one of these things.
I know, you would think. And then I was walking down the hall, and on 1200 WOAI, they have the Brad Sham report every morning, which is like, Brad Sham does this update, and I'm going to have to go back and look at it. But I heard Brad Sham say this morning on the Cowboys report with Brad Sham that the Tampa Bay offense in each of its final 7 games last year en route to the Super Bowl scored 30 plus points. So they're on a streak of 7 straight games scoring 30 plus points. So we already know this is going to be a tall order for the Cowboys defense. And, you and I, Shannon, believe and agree that automatically this is a better defense than last year, just by virtue of Dan Quinn coming in, simplifying some of the schemes. The defense actually did look better in preseason. Micah Parsons looks very good as a high draft pick, a rookie linebacker. But, Tampa Bay, it's almost like guaranteed. They're going to score 30. They're going to score 30, 31, 35. So you're going to have to put up a 35 or a 40 burger if you want to beat them on Thursday night.
Come on, special teams.
Yeah.
Be special.
Special teams, defense, tipped pass that gets Cowboys get a couple interceptions, maybe get a pick six. And the Cowboys game and the loss of Zach Martin have led us to our poll question this morning. Shannon, do you have the poll question in front of you yet?
Yes, sir. With the guard Zach Martin out of Thursday night's opener with COVID, the Cowboys' chances to beat the Bucs are. And I've got some issues with your options here, Chris, because you have Slim, none, and Snowball's chance in hell. What about optimistic Cowboys fans like me going into every season believing we have what it takes to win the Super Bowl to saying no problem here?
Okay, you know what? During the break, and I'm going to add no problem here.
First game of the season. Right. I don't see anybody from the Cowboys camp panicking. We know that they were working on alternates at that center position. Right, so why not have alternates at the guard position? Why not get everyone's okay doing everything if you're an offensive lineman? It's fine. We're
Next
fine.
Man up.
It's fine.
All right, I like the optimism. You're right, and I guess my coffee had not kicked in yet. I did not offer an optimistic option.
So
I put Slim, none, and Snowball's chance in hell. Tell you what, as we break, and we're going to go ahead and break now. I'm going to revamp the poll question. Yeah. And add optimism. Yeah. No problem here.
And it'll be interesting because right now, as it stands, 53% are saying Slim. Yeah. So I'm curious of how many of those would switch to a more optimistic
There you
outcome.
Go. Thank you. Thank you for checking me on. I started this Tuesday morning without optimism. We can't do that.
Yeah, you started your Tuesday like a Monday. It's
fine. Exactly. Thank you, Jerry. All right, quick break. Coming up, the high five play of the day. And I think we got a good one. And I think it's pretty cool. And we'll elaborate on it even more later in the show. You'll see what that is all about. High five play of the day is coming up. Don't forget, 7 o'clock hour is Shannon's Salty Shakedown, sports history and sports birthdays. As we mentioned, Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7, going to go deep on the Texas Longhorns victory over Louisiana with us just after 8 o'clock. Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA athletics, going to join us just after 8:30. And you can join us anytime you like. Phone number 800-707-9760. Yes, we like taking your phone call. Yes, we will take your phone call. Yes, we don't bite. Okay, we do sometimes. 800-707-9760. Live video feed, as we mentioned, you can jump in there as well. Playing injured with a broken toe, he is Dave Ayler. She's the salty one, Shannon Sweeney. I'm Chris, with you till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Little Beatles for you. Anthony Del Toro, welcome in. All right, let me see if I can fix this poll question. Ow, that's loud. It's so loud. It's so loud. Now, let me see if I can do this. Oh, no. No. All right. I'm going to just put this one up first. And then I will delete the other one. All right, there's that. Now I need to delete the other one. Which is there. Delete. All right. And Robert Anthony, Trace, Clint, Foamfoot 420, Hector, Louisa, Ralph, everybody else, welcome in. I am going to see if I have time to go get coffee, or I'll just, sometimes it's still warm enough out of this thermos. Let's find out. I see steam. It is still warm enough. That is a beautiful thing. Ty Jones, good morning. Robert likes the Beatles, as do I. Yeah, I was listening to the Beatles channel on Sirius XM this weekend, and they did every Beatles song in order that it was recorded in the studio, which was interesting. And yes, then they even did. So they finished. The last one was The Long and Winding Road, but it wasn't actually the last one. Because as you will remember, the Beatles, when they did the Beatles anthology, after John, many years after John died, the three at that point surviving Beatles, before George died, did Real Love and Free as a Bird. Only I think in the other order. They did Free as a Bird first and then Real Love, based upon demo recordings that John Lennon did. And then they added their instrumentation and vocals, which was way cool. Tracy Bogert, how do you get banned so much, man? What are you doing to get banned? Trace's Softball Classics. Tracy, as president of the Bexar County MAGA Republicans and coronavirus deniers, that's not a good look for you and your MAGA friends. What was I going to say? Speaking of coronavirus, not to bring everybody down, but I saw in the New York Times this morning, new cases of the coronavirus now versus last year, Labor Day weekend, are up 300%. We have 300% more new coronavirus cases this Labor Day weekend than we did last Labor Day weekend in 2020. That ain't good, people. That ain't good. Yeah, I sadly, here you got Zach Martin of the Cowboys out. I sadly think it is coming back. And I believe Zach Martin was vaccinated. You know, more people who are vaccinated are testing positive. Now, again, there's, see, I told you the vaccine doesn't. No, if you're vaccinated and you acquire it, you are, I don't want to say infinitely, that's not the right word, exponentially more likely to not have severe symptoms. It will, if you get it, after being vaccinated. I mean, your likelihood of getting it does go way down. Your likelihood of spreading it goes down. But if you do get it, you are very much more prone to not having the symptoms that'll land you in a hospital or worse. Yeah, Tracy, I wear my mask all over the place as well now, and I wear it into some places, and I don't see anybody wearing a mask. But so and now that Labor Day is passed, we're moving into the season where it's like the cold and flu season, where more susceptibility to getting a virus is out there for all viruses. Steve Duraco, good morning. Steve Duraco, the original Rock, the original Italian Stallion, and a soon-to-be 2021 enshrinee of the San Antonio Polar Bear Hall of Fame. So good morning, everybody. I think I said good morning to everybody I see. And again, I don't see everybody. There's 17 in here right now. Foamfoot, Tracy Bogert, Hector Gomez, Luisa, Ralph, Robert, Clint, Jason, Havens84 on Twitch. Robert is in here via YouTube. Anthony Del Toro, Ty Jones on YouTube. Eddie Fisher, good morning, in here on YouTube. Yeah, Luisa, hundreds of thousands at football games not wearing masks. Yeah, the semi good news there is if it's an outdoor stadium.
We're back. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweet. Join in by dialing 1-800-707-9760.
Welcome back. It is, as you just heard, the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Lots of activity on the live video feed. People joining us from every portal this morning via Facebook Live, via YouTube, via Twitch. So welcome in, everybody. Hector Gomez says an exciting Notre Dame football victory on Sunday in overtime. We will talk more college football. We'll talk more NFL. Certainly, the countdown is on to the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Thursday night. Hard Knocks will drop tonight. Shannon, that's pretty exciting. Final episode of Hard Knocks. What do you think we're going to see tonight?
I think we're going to see some heartbreaks, as you tend to find on that final episode, as it is the kind of recap of Cut Day. But it'll be interesting. I want to sound like a jerk and say I'm looking forward to the Ben DiNucci conversation. I'm curious about how it goes down.
Yes.
Like when McCarthy picks up that phone, does he still call him DiNucci, or is this a Ben DiNucci?
Yeah.
Insert middle name.
Yeah, exactly.
I need to see you in my office. And obviously we know he's the one that comes back to join the practice squad. So it's, we'll probably get that conversation. But it's always interesting, and I'm looking forward to it. It's also kind of bittersweet, right? Because I do enjoy Hard Knocks so much, and
yeah,
during football season, it's like, yes, you have football now, and I'm like, yeah, but now my Tuesday nights have nothing. There's no football on Tuesdays,
and it is kind of a nice little appetizer tonight for Thursday night's Cowboys Buccaneers game. So it's like it's a short week after Labor Day, but on two of these evenings during the work week, Tuesday and Thursday, we get a big hit of Dallas Cowboys programming.
It'll also be interesting because, we didn't get that fourth preseason game. So I'm curious if they kept the cameras rolling after cut. Like, are we just going to get cuts, or are we going to get cuts and then a little bit of, a look at what was going on, get or a little bit of what they're doing to prepare for the Bucs?
Great question.
We kept those rolling last week after Tuesday.
Yeah, because, if they kept them rolling over the weekend, and if they're going to edit, if they were editing yesterday, Labor Day, and if they're going to edit today and go to air, well, I guess, I don't know, they wouldn't edit today, but, the Zach Martin story, are they going to have that? I think not. I would be very impressed if they had it, though. That means they added that from the weekend, and, we're editing, maybe Saturday or Sunday or Monday. So it's going to be interesting to see. Hard Knocks tonight, 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. So, my dilemma, because there's no way I'm going to bed early Thursday night. So I'm going to be, and probably you, we're going to be dragging in here on Friday, but that's okay because it's football and it'll be the weekend. And so tonight it's going to be, I got to make a decision. Because I tried that last week, Shannon. It's like, all right, because it's sensible. And you gave me the idea. It's like, all right, go to sleep at a reasonable hour, then wake up and watch Hard Knocks as you get ready for work. I got my laptop so I can walk anywhere I go. I can take it with me. I even brought it into the studio and was watching it in the studio. But I didn't get it all. I wasn't able to focus the way I want to focus on it. And B, I didn't get it completed by showtime. So
it's a risk.
I know. I'm so high on football and this big Dallas Cowboys week that I may just stay up. We'll see. I can sleep on the weekend. All right. It is time for the High Five play of the day, appropriately sponsored by High Five. Shannon, tell us a little bit about High Five in Austin. What do we find there?
Well, on Tuesdays, you can find $2 tacos and $2 laser round tags out at that Lakeway location, or get over to Anderson Lane. They've also got a great happy hour, as well as axe throwing, bowling, games, the Top Golf, virtual Top Golf, where not only can you play Top Golf, but you can play dodgeball, zombie dodgeball, my personal favorite, and I'm very skilled at it. So if you need a partner, just hit me up. High Five, a great Austin area location to hang out and watch all the sporting events that we now have going on, now that it is the official week of the NFL to kick things off, and college football going strong.
Thank goodness. High Five. And now, Shannon, our High Five goes to friend of the show, regular guest. And normally we have him on Mondays. And of course, yesterday was Labor Day. And then today he will be in practice this morning at the time. I still try to grab him today, but we're going to grab Andy Everett to talk anyway. So we're giving the high five to UTSA head coach Jeff Traylor and the entire UTSA Roadrunner football team for what is, Shannon, I believe, arguably the biggest win in program history. And I'll be happy to make that argument. It'll be interesting to see how Andy Everett feels about this when we talk at 8:35. UTSA went to Illinois and beat Illinois 37-30. Illinois in the Big Ten, and I know they're not a Big Ten powerhouse, but they're a Big Ten football team, and their pool of available players. And this is an Illinois team that went out and beat Nebraska the week before. Shannon, we spoke with Coach A, Paul Alexander, on Friday, and he made the point, and I agreed with him, and it influenced my horrible picking. And we'll get into that over the weekend. But the fact that Illinois played that first game, and that most college football teams make their biggest leap from week 1 to week 2. UTSA with high expectations this year. They go in, it was tight in the fourth quarter, and they found a way to win 37-30 in a year that there are high expectations for the UTSA Roadrunners. Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine picks them to go 10-2. Well, it would have been hard to go 10-2 if you'd have lost this opener, and it would have been very deflating to lose the opener, but not the end of the world. And Shannon, I'm just so impressed with Coach Jeff Traylor and that entire UTSA Roadrunner football team. So high five to everybody. High five to UTSA alums, students, and fans, everybody associated with that university. That was a huge, huge win, maybe the biggest win ever for UTSA. Hopefully many more to come this season.
Yeah, a great win. And looking at the stats, it was very even across the board as far as total yardage and number of first downs, and time of possession was pretty much split right down the middle. Where UTSA really shined was in the rushing category. And it, just like Coach told us last week, it was rushing by committee. I mean, Sincere McCormick, he only averaged 3.8 yards carry. They gave him the ball 31 times and he ran for 117 yards. But he ended up not scoring. That was done by, Brendan Brady and Frank Harris, who, Coach Traylor said they're all very capable. And we saw that on full display against Illinois. I think it's fantastic. And I think it just shows you, like you said, Illinois in the Big Ten, but not necessarily one of the big names you think of. But if a school like UTSA can compete with a school that's in the Big Ten, I think that just is great in showing of where they might be headed in the future.
Yeah, Andy talked to us about, the athletic programs and how much money they have. And a Big Ten school, their athletic program has, like 4 times, sometimes 5 times, the money and resources that, a Conference USA school like UTSA has at this time. So I did see on Twitter, Lisa Campos, the athletic director, I saw she was at the game. She's got to be thrilled. Jeff Traylor was her hire. And man, things are going very, very well. You mentioned Frank Harris, the quarterback who rushed 8 times for 33 yards and a touchdown. He also threw for a touchdown. I'm looking at his numbers, Shannon. Most importantly, no interceptions. I mean, he was 20 of 32, 280 yards through the air, a touchdown, and no interceptions. If you can take care of that football, that's a big, big deal. And he did at quarterback. So again, we'll go deeper into UTSA football with Andy Everett just after 8:30. But huge, huge win for them. And again, Jeff Traylor, great guy, great coach, and it's great to see him successful. He was successful in year number 1, and he's on a trajectory after one game here to maybe be remarkably even more successful this coming season.
Yeah, that triangle of toughness, it does travel.
Yes, it does.
It does travel.
And I am noticing, I'm looking at a lot of the social media, including Jeff Traylor, already talking about the next game. It's the home opener for UTSA at the Alamo Dome this Saturday. They take on Lamar. You would think if you can go on the road and beat Illinois, you would think you can beat Lamar handily at home. They will be expected to. But, the key is, what kind of a crowd can UTSA get at the Alamo Dome? So they're already imploring UTSA and San Antonio area football fans to head to the Alamo Dome at 5 for that game on Saturday. And that's something else. That is one of the issues UTSA has had, Shannon. That's a very nice facility. The Alamo Dome can hold 65,000. It's a cool facility to have for UTSA as a Conference USA school, but they just don't draw the fans that they would hope they would draw. And maybe, again, I said this about Texas to you earlier, winning cures many ills. And if this UTSA football team starts winning, it will be fashionable. But I've always felt that San Antonio, yes, there's a lot of Longhorn fans in this town. Yes, there's a lot of Aggie fans in this town, but your Division I college football team of record is UTSA. I know that UIW, University of the Incarnate Word, is also a Division I football program, but there's quite the drop off there for UIW. God love them, and I wish them the best. And it is, and I've been to a number of UIW games on campus. It's a fun, great game day experience. But I've always hoped, and maybe this will happen eventually, Shannon, that the city of San Antonio and the surrounding area should embrace UTSA. And it's now clearly more and more now, it's a very, very good, if not excellent brand of football. It's highly entertaining. They're great guys. So hopefully this program will start getting the attendance numbers now that people can go in the Alamo Dome, and hopefully this city will get behind them.
Yeah, if anything, go and check it out of curiosity. It's obviously a great team and a program that is, building each and every year. And if you're a football fan and you like quality football, why not go check out football within your own city?
Amen. Amen to that. So other college football and any other. Well, first of all, did you go 3-0? I think I pretty much went 0-3.
No, I was looking good. I was
Yeah.
looking really good, except for Kansas, because Kansas, I guess, decided to play football for once. I don't know. Usually they go out there and they're like, "This isn't a basketball game." And that Houston, I picked Houston over Tech. The line was 1.5. I thought Houston would win, and it looked really great early, but Texas Tech came back in pretty great fashion and ended up winning that. I don't know if the Mahomes magic, maybe it had trickled down, because I know Mahomes and his crew were in the house for that one.
That was impressive. 38-21 at Houston. Texas Tech gets the win. And and we've talked about Texas Tech, and we made our Big 12 predictions. Texas Tech not expected to be a powerhouse at all this year. So that's a great opening win for Texas Tech.
Yeah. And then, my final pick was, that Oklahoma line was 31 against Tulane. I thought that's way too many points, even for an Oklahoma. Maybe they get off to a hot start. They pull some other players out. But that game was a lot closer than what any Sooner fan had to be comfortable with.
Oh, my goodness, yes.
And, again, it's, not to be the pessimist, but it's game one for everybody. And we've seen, like the Texas, we're back against Notre Dame. And then you watch Notre Dame just drown the rest of the season. So these bigger wins, like we're having, or we might see, like the UCLA is like, they look great. I don't want to take anything away from UCLA, but it's over an LSU team that I think a lot of people thought were overrated coming into this year.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, oh, well, they just had a down year last year because Joe Burrow. Like, no, LSU is down bad, and I think they're going to get worse throughout the season. And I think the bigger wins we're seeing right now, depending on the team, they're either going to look that much bigger at the end of the season, or like they weren't a big deal at all.
Yeah, and back to Oklahoma Tulane for a second, 40-35, as you mentioned, way too close for comfort for Oklahoma. If Tulane could have just found a way to get that upset, it would have been one. I mean, it would be dating back to like Appalachian State when they beat Michigan a number of years ago on opening day, and it would have effectively killed Oklahoma's chances, I would think, to go. They're like a write-in for the playoff. The 4-team playoff, according to many people. It would have been great to see them get the loss. It would have been really tough for them with a loss now to Tulane to go to that college football playoff, even though it would have been opening day.
Yeah. And then we look at, Georgia and Clemson. I don't think that's the game they wanted for their primetime Saturday night. That was bell ring, in my opinion, and disgusting with so much mayonnaise. So much mayonnaise. I didn't get it on game day, and then it hit me as I'm watching the Duke's mayonnaise game or whatever. I'm like, okay, that makes sense, but still super gross. But Georgia, they proved Trevor Lawrence is probably the one that's gonna kill Clemson this year by just not being on the field.
10-3. You don't see a lot of 10-3 games in college football anymore.
People were quick to bring up that video of Dabo and the new quarterback in a private jet saying that's where you're going to be throwing all those touchdowns. Uh-oh.
Yep.
Uh-oh.
None to speak of when you only score 3 points. Crazy. And Clemson came in at number 3. Georgia at 5 coming into that one. 10-3 Georgia at Clemson. Coming up, we'll talk more college football. We'll talk more pro football. We'll take a look at Major League Baseball. Also in the 7 o'clock hour, Shannon's Salty Shakedown, sports history, sports birthdays, and more. We are all over the football, college and pro more than anything else. It's the Chris Duel Show. All right. Beth Settle, good morning. Woo! Woo! Let's see. Yeah, I'm going to nuke my coffee. I'll be back in about 90 seconds. John Paul Albert, good morning. Lucinda Sullivan, good morning with the coffee emoji. I have coffee. Newly nuked. All right.
I'm in favor of execution. Maybe our entire team needs to be executed after tonight. I mean, it was just. I'm in favor of execution. Maybe our entire team needs to be executed.
Ah! Foam Foot 420. I once broke up with a guy because he said Tony Romo sucks. That's loyalty. Foam Foot 420. Major League Baseball will be in San Antonio in the year 2030. And for those of you on Facebook Live, you don't see Foam Foot 420's comments because those are coming from YouTube, as are Robert Almares' comments. Tracy Bogert, I see it's been a while since you posted that, Tracy, like 30 minutes almost, but yeah, the statistics are staggering. Jason Paniagua joins us from YouTube as well. Good morning, everybody on the live video feed, whether you're here from YouTube, Facebook, or Twitch. Here we come.
Chris Duel.
It is a Tuesday. It is a Taco Tuesday. It is the Tuesday after Labor Day. No more white slacks. At least that's what it used to be. I'll let you wear white slacks, though. It's whatever you wear. You can even listen to the show naked. Just don't send us any photos. We don't necessarily want to see you naked. Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. And yes, Shannon, I did modify, and you were right. We needed to include some optimism in our poll question. So we have a newly revamped poll question involving Zach Martin out with COVID and the Dallas Cowboys. How does our poll question read now?
Yeah, well, with Zach Martin out for Thursday night's opener against the Bucs, we're asking how Cowboys fans feel about their chances of winning. And we've added the no problem here right now with 12% of the vote. Slim chance now down to 37%. I think we swayed some of those former voters over to saying, you know what, I still feel good about this team. Another 12% saying there's no chance that the Cowboys beat the Bucs on Thursday night, and 36% saying snowball's chance in hell, Chris. They have no belief. I mean, I ask you, do you turn on your TV at that point?
That's exactly. But I mean, doing some of my Holmes High School math here, Shannon, if you add the no problem here, the people very optimistic, and the slim, that's 52% of our voters are saying the Cowboys have a chance to win this football game. That's pretty amazing.
That's all we need. You're saying there's a chance.
On any given Sunday or Thursday night in the National Football League, and it's not like the Cowboys are the Jets. It's not like they're the Houston Texans.
Yeah, come on. One
of the worst teams in football. I mean, granted, the Zach Martin thing sucks to have him out with COVID, but if a fumble here or there by a Tampa Bay Buccaneer, and God forbid here's the other thing on Tom Brady, and I like Tom Brady a lot, as you know, Shannon, but we noticed this with Drew Brees. When age diminishes your quarterback skills, when your skills as a quarterback begin to fall off, it's usually very quickly, as in overnight. Now, granted, Tom Brady has been phenomenal, and I have a feeling he will still continue to be phenomenal, but here we go. And granted, I saw Tom Brady a few drives against the Houston Texans. Granted, it was against the Texans in the preseason, and he looked sharp. But, there's still a chance that, Tom Brady throwing over the middle, ball gets tipped, Cowboys intercept, and there could be a big swing in this football game.
Yeah. For those interested, the line opened at 6.5. And now with that Zach Martin news, it's now 8.5 in favor of the Bucs.
I almost
more than a touchdown.
I think that's a little too high. I think that line should be about between 6 and 7, but exactly, as you say, more than a touchdown against a Dallas Cowboys team that is pretty good. In fact, I brought it. I'll have to pull it out here in a moment, Shannon. The new Sports Illustrated from last week with Dak Prescott on the cover.
Great story.
Yes, thank you. And you were the first person to point out how great that story was. But they do their predictions, and we'll be doing ours later in the week. Mm-hmm. In fact, tomorrow we're going to reveal our AFC picks, and then on Thursday we'll reveal our NFC picks and our playoff and Super Bowl picks. But they picked the Cowboys to win the NFC East. I believe they said something like 11-6, something like that. The thing that shocked me, they have the Giants in second in the NFC East and going to the playoffs, getting a wild card. And everybody right now is high on the Washington football team. Yeah. They've got Washington coming in third in the NFC East and missing the playoffs. So, I mean, my point is, this is a Cowboys team that not just delusional people like Shannon and me when it comes to the Cowboys are saying that they're a pretty good football team, but even Sports Illustrated, and I'm sure there are others, picking the Cowboys to win the NFC East. So it's not like they're chopped liver. It's not like they're a high school team coming into Tampa Bay on Thursday night to get annihilated and thrown to the Lions. That's why I think that 8-point spread is high, even with Zach Martin out for the Cowboys.
Yeah. I'll take the Cowboys in that one if it sits at 8.5. I absolutely would. It'll be interesting to see if that line changes
in the next 48 hours. Speaking of Tom Brady, Shannon, over the weekend, and I know you know this because you put it in the show notes, found out a little revelation about Tom Brady over the weekend. Tell us about this.
He said he had COVID in February, and that he believes he contracted it at some point during the parade, the boat parade. Most people remember it for Tom Brady throwing the Lombardi Trophy from one boat to another. Avocado tequila was had, perhaps maybe shared, and thus that's where he picked it up from.
And he was drunk out of his mind, as we know.
So, yeah, I don't, it seems like it really hasn't affected him. I know a lot of I know some people have had like respiratory issues, right? But I and again, it's so like the secretiveness around Tom Brady, like his injury, like these are things that
nobody
should they
knew.
have leaked, would have been really big headlining news. And now that it's old news, but just now coming out, I don't think people are really paying attention.
Well, and Shannon, I think it's a little bit telling, and it's a little bit if Tom Brady gets COVID, and he did, we now know he had it in February.
Got COVID?
Well, but he nobody takes care of his body. No, I mean, he's like a robot. Nobody takes care of his body. Nobody takes more precautions. Nobody watches his diet. I gotta believe, and we talked about this last week, Shannon, the fact that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are now 100% fully vaccinated. Everybody's vaccinated. And apparently Zach Martin was also vaccinated. And let me just digress here for a moment on Zach Martin's status. And I saw some people tweeting when they heard Zach Martin was vaccinated and still got COVID, saying, "Oh, see, the vaccine doesn't work." Well, not exactly, and you're way off, because, as we know, the vaccine will dramatically diminish the chances that you can get COVID-19. But if you get it and you're vaccinated, the chances that your symptoms will be so bad that they land you in the hospital, or worse, kill you, those numbers go down dramatically because you have been vaccinated. You have the antibodies in your system to fight that virus even when you have it, so that you are not as symptomatic as you might otherwise be if you weren't vaccinated. So I wanted to point that out about Zach Martin's status. But, my point is this: if Tom Brady can get COVID, and I'll even throw this in, if Zach Martin can get COVID while vaccinated, I mean, anybody can get COVID-19. That is frightening for me, and I think for everybody, as we move into another football season.
Now, was Brady vaccinated at the time?
Good question.
February was,
you're right.
Special.
You're right. Most people who did not have underlying conditions. I know my mom, who's now 98, we got her the vaccine as soon as we could, and that was in March. So you're right. February, it is unlikely that he was vaccinated or could have had access to a vaccine, although he is Tom Brady, and I'm sure he was probably Pfizer. He could call up Pfizer and go, "Pfizer, Tom Brady, can you send somebody over and give me the vaccine?"
Right.
Oh, yes, Mr. Brady.
Yeah, I'll be an advocate. Another Tom Brady story, the leg garment that we're so accustomed to seeing him wear, that brace. Apparently he's not wearing it anymore.
Is that right?
After like 13 years. I don't know. He says he feels lighter without it, but I don't know. Once we get into live game action, maybe that's something that mentally might trip him up.
Well, yeah, and we talked about Dicker the kicker in the first, the fact that he's punting now and you're adding something different to his routine on game day. Same thing for Brady. Exactly. If you're used to playing with certain equipment and you've done it year in and year out, and you don't have that thing on your leg anymore, and a lot of quarterbacking obviously is dropping back to pass and footwork and movement of your legs and your feet. It could
just
be
looking for reasons. And
so am I. I mean, when you, in the NFL and in college football, when you really think you know what the outcome's going to be, and you're absolutely sure, unless it's Alabama playing, because then you're right, because Alabama is Alabama. But I would not be surprised if Dallas shocks the world. Then again, Shannon, as I mentioned, when it comes to the Cowboys, you and I are delusional. So,
as I feel all Cowboys fans should and are allowed to be.
Yeah. Now, you posed an interesting question a few minutes ago when we talked about the poll question, that there are some people saying the Cowboys have no chance to win this game Thursday night, and others are saying the Cowboys have a snowball's chance in hell to win this game on Thursday night. So you said, why watch? Why even tune in? And I mean, I would tune in even as a Cowboys fan, and even if they're down 21-0 at the end of the first quarter, and I don't think that's going to be the case, I'm still watching. I still want to see how the Cowboys respond in this game. As a football fan, I want to see Tom Brady and the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How do they play for 4 quarters? So what about you, though? If you were sure the Cowboys are going to lose this game, would you tune in anyway?
As a Cowboys fan, yes, because again, I'm delusional and I will always have hope in there somewhere. But if you're a fan of another team, I know a lot of people love to hate the Cowboys, so that they would love to see them get crushed to open the year, right? And watch, the Cowboys Twitter go aflame. But it is a Thursday night, and there are plenty of people like us who have to get up and go to work the next day. Maybe not as early, but I wouldn't be surprised if there's a huge dip in the audience come 9:00 that night. People have their routines, and Thursday night I have my other show, so it's not my team playing. Why would I care to watch a game that probably isn't going to be much of a game? If you are in the category of believing that there's no chance in hell that the Cowboys will beat the Bucs.
But see, I still think, even though it is Thursday night, even though the next day is a work day, the fact that it's opening night of the NFL season, and I think you can't have a better matchup just from a sizzle standpoint, unless maybe you had Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs involved, but you got Tom Brady, marquee superstar, the GOAT of all time in most people's books. You got the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and on the other side, you've got America's team. And as you say, Shannon, some people love them, a lot of people hate them. Some will be tuning in for the hatred, but you got Dak Prescott coming off the injury. You got all of those toys on offense, and you've got Jerry Jones, who is, again, love him or hate him, he's Darth Vader of the NFL, or the Crypt Keeper, which is what we used to call Al Davis when he was still alive. So, I mean, you've got so much going on, and the fact that it is opening night, and so many people, myself included, are football starved, and in this case, NFL football starved. That's part of the reason why, even if it is lopsided in the fourth quarter, I don't think I'll be able to tune out. I just think there's just too much going on and too much I want to see.
I'm excited that they're opening the season. I don't have to wait longer than Thursday, but Sunday I'm going to be sad.
Why?
Because there will be NFL football on, but I'll be craving another Cowboys game by that point.
Well, okay, I see that, but you get a chance to see Sunshine, Trevor Lawrence, and the Jaguars take on that's intriguing to me because of the matchup. And I know, and
two bad teams going at it.
I know, but one of them is a Texas team, and our good friend, the voice of the Houston Texans, Mark Vandermeer, joins us on Fridays, and it's the debut. I mean, again, we talk about Tom Brady and his greatness, and Patrick Mahomes and his greatness, and we brought up Drew Brees. If Trevor Lawrence is going to live up to any of his expectations, we have an opportunity to watch game number 1. And granted, Peyton Manning went 3-13 his first season. The Cowboys, even though Aikman didn't play all of those games, and Aikman didn't play in the game they won his rookie year, the Cowboys went 1-15. So, I mean, you may see Trevor Lawrence get his head kicked in, or because it's the Houston Texans, Trevor Lawrence has an opportunity to do something special on opening day and go 1-0 and win on the road and turn some heads. So we'll see how that works out.
I mean, they got a taste of victory over the Cowboys, didn't they?
Yeah. And Trevor
Why
Lawrence,
not ride that?
Yeah, his first touchdown pass of the preseason, and therefore his career, was against the Cowboys.
Nice of them to do that for him.
Yeah.
We're good people, us Cowboys.
That Cowboys defense, very accommodating. Now, something else, jumping back to college football for a moment, Shannon, and Notre Dame's game on Sunday. And I saw Hector Gomez on our live video feed brought this up. He's a big Notre Dame fan. Number 9, Notre Dame, goes to overtime against Florida State. It was a barn burner. They wind up getting a field goal in overtime to wind up winning it with a field goal 41-38. And Shannon, Chip Kelly, the Notre Dame football coach, with some interesting comments to a sideline reporter.
Do we have it?
Do we have it?
Execution. Maybe our entire team needs to be executed after tonight.
Okay, you just play the first half. I'm in favor of execution. You're like,
Yeah.
That makes sense. Like, you go out and you execute. Coaches talk about executing all the time. You practice all week and you go out and execute. You follow the scheme. You follow the game plan. But he didn't stop there, and that's where I have a problem.
I'm trying to remember. I've heard another coach say something very similar to that. I'm trying to think of who it was. That might have been Lou Holtz. Which is interesting because Lou Holtz was also a Notre Dame coach at one time. So I'm in favor of execution. And I think maybe our whole team should have been executed.
I what was the question he was asked? I mean, that reporter's looking at him like that's not anywhere near what I.
Yeah, I said Chip Kelly. It's Brian Kelly, by the way.
Yeah.
Somebody. Sorry about that. Brian Kelly.
Brian Kelly. Yeah.
I don't like either. I don't like Chip Kelly or Brian Kelly, by the way.
At this point, I'm sure if you're Brian Kelly, you've been on and off the hot seat so many times at Notre Dame that you're probably like, whatever. Like, if it's finally my time, it's finally my time. But I'm winning right now, so I'll say whatever I want to. What a weird thing to say.
Yeah.
I wonder how many phone calls from mothers of players he got the next day.
Yeah, I still think it's funny. And again,
it's hilarious.
I got somebody else said it. He's not the first to say it. Like 20 years ago, somebody else said it. And in my head, and maybe I'll Google it during the break, but in my head, I think it was Lou Holtz. And if it was Lou Holtz, I wonder if he said it while he was head coach at Notre Dame. But you're right. I forget what the spread was on that game, but Notre Dame was supposed to, at the number 9 team in the country coming in, Florida State was unranked. Notre Dame was supposed to have its way with Florida State, and they go to overtime and win it 41-38. So not good for Notre Dame.
Perhaps similar to that Texas year, right? Coming in a little high for who they are and not being able to live up to it. I mean, they got the win though, so that's all that matters. They unlike that Texas game, but yeah, it just once he said it, you were like, people are going to scrutinize the crap out of him.
Oh yeah,
for that, and not take it for whatever for that being in the moment. Just you should, but I think he maybe should have just stopped it. I'm a fan of execution on a different way. I don't know.
Yeah, and again, you look at that game against Florida State, and there were other upsets, including Montana. We don't even talk about Montana football. They went to Washington on the road at Washington. Washington was the number 20 ranked football team in the country, and they beat Washington in Washington's house, the Huskies, 13-7. But again, as you mentioned, Shannon, opening day in college football, there's a lot of opening day jitters. College, clearly, they don't play a preseason. This is the first real football for everybody. So you wonder, what was Notre Dame? Was that part of what was going on for Notre Dame? Clearly, it was something was wrong with Washington only scoring 7 points. And of course, we talked about Clemson only scoring 3 points in their own house against Georgia. That is such a huge, and I realize Clemson lost Trevor Lawrence, but they were ranked number 3 coming in, Georgia ranked number 5, and Georgia wins that game 10-3 at Clemson. Maybe Georgia's that good to be able to hold Clemson to 3, but I can't imagine the drop off, losing Sunshine and Etienne and whoever else they lost for a team that was ranked number 3 in the country, for them to lose a game and only score 3 points and not score a touchdown the whole game in their house.
I mean, I was listening to Coward yesterday, and he was kind of talking about college dynasties, right? And you've had the Mac Browns and the Notre Dames and so forth, and they last about, unless you're Alabama, those things last about 6-7 years, right? Before you kind of go through that rebuild, regrowth, find the next man to do the job. And this could be it for Dabo, right? I mean, I think he got lucky with, having Deshaun and Trevor so close together, and all the other players that really sparked that recruitment to bring kids there, and all that came with it, and the influx. They changed their practice facilities. They changed, they grew massively very quickly, and they've had it all for a while now, and I think they're kind of not going to know what to do with what they have going into this season now that they're 0-1.
By the way, Kevin Monk on our live video feed says the previous coach who used that line, I believe in execution. I think all of our players should be executed. He says it was the old Tampa Bay Buccaneers coach, and that would be John McKay. The original, when Tampa Bay came into the NFL and went 0-14, John McKay had gone from USC to being the first Tampa Bay Buccaneers coach back in 1976. And I think you're right, Kevin. I think now that you say it, I think it was John McKay of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. All right, coming up, fasten your seatbelts, take many deep breaths. If you're Catholic, pray your rosary, because Shannon's Salty Shakedown is coming up. We'll give you this day in sports history, sports birthdays as well. And you can always join us on the phone lines and the live video feed. Phone number 800-707-9760. 8 o'clock hour. We're about a half an hour away from Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7. We'll go in depth into the Texas Longhorns' big win over Louisiana on Saturday. And Saturday night, it was UTSA with what I believe may very well be the biggest win in program history, as they went on the road and beat a Big Ten team, Illinois, at Champaign, Illinois. So we'll talk some UTSA football and more with Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA athletics. Andy will join us just after 8:30. Lots of show coming your way. Thanks for hanging out with us. She is Shannon Salty Sweeney. Dave Ayler playing injured today with a broken toe, making the show go. I'm Chris. Till 9 on the Chris Duel Show. Dave, I've got to record a couple of spots. Just letting you know. Thank you, sir. Good catch, Kevin. I think you're right, man. I think it was John McKay. All right. I have to record some R&R auto glass spots. So let me see if this system wants to cooperate. Check. Check, check, check. Woo! Looks like it's working. Now, I will spare you having to listen to me read multiple spots here. Warren Wheeler, what is up? Let's see. So I'm going to mute this for a sec, or a few minutes to be more accurate, and I'll be back in a sec. So if anybody sees me, it's because I've muted this microphone. I'll be back in a minute with audio. Okay. I had to do 6 R&R auto glass spots. 3 for each of the next 2 weeks. Woo! Woo! Just in time. Chris Gonzalez, thanks for the save. I said Chip Kelly. What was I thinking?
Let's get back to the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney. Find Chris and Salty on Twitter at Chris Duel and at Shannon B. Sweeney.
That's right. And of course, Shannon at Shannon B. Sweeney across all social media. Shannon's big on TikTok, Instagram, and I guess Twitch now too, Shannon. Is that your Twitch? Is it Shannon B. Sweeney on Twitch?
Yeah, but I'm not like streaming games or anything. Just the show.
Streaming the show. Woo. Yeah, and I've also at Chris Duel. You can find an Instagram account, Twitter, Facebook. I have a TikTok account. Still haven't done a video yet. Someday I can dream. All right, coming up, we are moments away from Shannon's salty shakedown. Before that, though, some sports birthdays, and let's start it with this day in sports history on a Taco Tuesday. But these weren't always Tuesdays in the past. September 7th, 1955, Whitey Ford becomes the 5th pitcher in Major League Baseball history to hurl consecutive one-hitters. 2 one-hitters in a row. Way to go, Whitey Ford. This day in 1986, the Cleveland Browns become the first team in NFL history to have a play reviewed by instant replay. Yes, if you love instant replay in the NFL, this is your anniversary. It started on this day in 1986 officially. By the way, in that game, the Browns lost to the Chicago Bears 41-31. And finally, this day in 2002, the U.S. Open Women's Tennis Championship, Serena Williams won her 2nd U.S. Open. She beat her older sister, Venus Williams, 6-4, 6-3. It's got to be tough on Venus to have Serena, your younger sister, be the better one, but it's okay. Venus had a good career as well. They were both spectacular. That's your sports history on this September 7th. How about some sports birthdays? Born on this day in 1908, Hall of Fame NFL football coach Paul Brown, who appropriately coached the Cleveland Browns and later coached the Cincinnati Bengals. Paul Brown, born in 1908 in Norwalk, Ohio. He died in 1991. Born on this day in 1968, Dallas Cowboys 4-time Pro Bowl winner and a staple of that offensive line at offensive tackle in the Jimmy Johnson era, Eric Williams, born on this day in 1968. He was born in Philadelphia. I never knew that. Wonder if he grew up an Eagles fan. That would be ugly. And finally, born on this day in 1988, Kevin Love, basketball player, Cleveland Cavaliers, UCLA Bruins in college. Kevin Love was born in Santa Monica, California. His father, Stan Love, who had a cup of coffee with the San Antonio Spurs back in the ABA, and one Spurs game at the Hemisphere Arena in opening warm-up, Stan Love was shooting the red, white, and blue basketball, and he left the basketball on the court, and 2 teenagers stole that basketball, a red, white, and blue ABA basketball, ran out of the Hemisphere Arena, down the street to one of their cars, put it in the car, and stole an ABA basketball from the Spurs. And Stan Love, the father of Kevin Love. And those two criminals were me and my friend Steve Duraco. And yes, we still have the basketball. And now I work on the Spurs radio network. Spurs, if you're listening, I apologize, RC Buford, Greg Popovich. If you really want it back, when did we steal that ball? That was like 1975. We stole the ABA ball. If you really want it back, we'll give it back to the Spurs.
Is that ball still in regulation?
It's
Change balls system?
well, it's an ABA ball, so it's the red, white, and blue ball. But it's
Okay.
yeah.
But like they haven't done any changes to those either, have they?
It was probably the same dimensions. I would think so. Yeah, same size and weight. So I can actually say that I stole something from an organization now that I'm kind of working for. Yeah.
You and Steve have to share that ball. Like, is it sometime at his house and sometimes at your house?
Yeah, Christmas.
He kept it for like 20 years and then gave it back to me. You know, I guess 10
get
years
the
ago.
evidence out of my house.
Exactly. Yeah. What is the statute of limitations for stealing a basketball? Hopefully it's up. All right. That's your sports birthdays and your sports history. I am a criminal. I admit it. But now, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, friends, Romans, countrymen, farm animals, here it is. You've waited throughout the entire Labor Day weekend. It's been 3 days since we've had it. But here it is. Your Tuesday, your Taco Tuesday, Salty Shakedown.
Chris, with the start of the football season, it also means start of just kind of regular television as fall season premieres are set to take place, some beginning this week, some next week, one of which is the show Survivor. Chris, have you ever watched Survivor?
Yeah, very early
Like
on, I was into it.
Season. Okay, so
Yeah,
they're about to start their 41st season, so it's okay if you've dropped out. I can't imagine how they've done this many, but that will premiere on September 22nd with former Dallas Cowboy Danny McCray as a contestant on the show. Now, do you remember Danny?
To be honest with you, that doesn't ring a bell.
That's fine.
Danny McCray.
That's totally fine. He played for a total of 5 years with the Cowboys.
Wow.
Was there as an undrafted free agent for a little bit. Then he went to, I believe, Chicago for a year, and then was back with the Cowboys. He was a defensive back, but mostly for special teams. That's where we saw him most often. Now, the prize money for winning Survivor is $1 million.
Woo!
Danny earned just over 3.7 during his NFL days. So, you know, 1 million is a pretty good chunk of change, right? That adds to his bank account there. So I you know, having seen Survivor, which you have, so you get the gist. How do you feel about a former NFL player? He played in the early 2010s. I think his last year was 2015-ish. So, you know, it's not too far removed. He could still be in pretty good shape. How do you think he will fare in the game of Survivor?
I would think a professional athlete would have some advantages. I remember many years ago, a former Cowboy quarterback, Gary Hogaboom, was on Survivor, and we know Jimmy Johnson was on once and didn't last very long. But I think he's going to do well. I got to go brush up on my Cowboy history and Danny McCray. I'm amazed that I can't remember the dude.
It's a show that I've never seen a full season, but perhaps it's maybe I have some interest now with Mr. Danny McCray, someone to actually cheer for and care about. Of course, it's a lot of politicking in those kinds of TV shows, right? So hopefully he's not a guy who turns out to not be very likable. All right, moving on. We're going to the Southern Hemisphere for the Argentina versus Brazil World Cup qualifier game, or what we thought was going to be a game, Chris, because minutes into the match, health officials stormed the field. They were upset about 4 Argentinian players who apparently were not entirely truthful about their quarantining and where they had come from. There's a couple countries right now that you can't travel from to get to Brazil because of COVID, right? So there are lots of travel restrictions around the world in general, as well as quarantine rules. Apparently 4 players from the Argentinian team were subject to these wrongdoings. And 5 minutes into this game, this World Cup qualifying game between 2 perennial teams that were missing some of their other players because they were playing for their regular season teams that are allowing people to travel, right, due to Corona. So it's not crazy, but a big game nonetheless, stormed by health officials minutes in. The game ends up being suspended because of these players. Everyone's very upset. And I agree. How do you let this game even start? Yeah. And at that point, they're already on the field. Everyone's already been around each other. I don't know how quickly the infection might be, and why can't you just get rid of those players then? Why can't you just remove those 4 players and let the game go on?
Yeah.
FIFA has some decisions to make here on what to do about the game. Currently in that pool, Brazil leads in first place 6 points ahead of second place Argentina. Of course, the top 4 teams will qualify, so both are still able to qualify. But those are some points that Argentina would love to make up should they be given the chance. Chris, it was just probably one of the weirder things going on. I mean, imagine the people who paid to go.
Oh
to
my
that
God!
game.
Yes.
Or pay, or set up. People love watch parties. Those countries love soccer. They probably had a full spread to go for this game. Game gets started. They're so excited, and then it's over within a matter of minutes because of something like this with health officials storming the field.
Well, and you're so right. I mean, Argentina and Brazil are two of the biggest powerhouses in. So, I mean, it was probably, as you describe, equivalent to like a Super Bowl in Argentina and Brazil as far as their rabid fans are concerned. So, yeah, the fans at the stadium and the fans in both countries gathered around televisions. That's like the Super Bowl being suspended 4 minutes in because 4 players violated COVID protocols. That's crazy. Wow.
Yeah. I saw Brazil trending. I saw that they were playing each other. I was like, oh, I got to turn this on, only to realize that they were trending due to the health officials storming the field. So we'll see if they actually get to make up that game or what will be done with that. U.S. has tied in both of their games so far. They played again over the weekend. They played Canada. So they've only got 2 points to show for it right now. For their, they didn't qualify for the last World Cup. So there's a lot riding on this. They really want to get back in there. And so far, doesn't feel like they're putting forth their best effort. All right, finally, we moved to college football today, Chris, because of course we do. And we love a troll job. Okay. We love a good, harmless troll job, and one that I think is deserved. So it just makes it all that much better. I know you're not a big fan of the UCLA Bruins, and rightfully so, as a USC Trojan man yourself. But I think you've got to give them props for this. Of course, LSU was in town to play the Bruins. LSU ranked, UCLA unranked. UCLA coming in after a win against Hawaii. They are looking to keep things rolling. They are looking to shock the world and take down the LSU Tigers. Well, walking into the stadium, Mr. Ed Orgeron was, I don't want to say being harassed. He's being taunted a little bit by some UCLA fans who were yelling things at him. And he said, I can't say some of the words he said, but basically he called them sis. He said, come down here with your sissy blue shirts, right? You're say it to my face in your sissy blue shirt. So sissy blue shirt quickly became a thing. Oh. Well, as we know, UCLA went on to beat LSU 38-27. And so UCLA not only tweeted, go Bears with the LSU style go with that X in there, but they also on Monday tweeted out peep the header. And for those not on Twitter, you have your profile picture and then you have a header picture, which is at the top of your entire feed. And it's a little bit bigger, a little bit more pronounced. A lot of people go with logos. A lot of people go with their families. They had changed from their normal football picture on UCLA's football Twitter account to a picture of a blue t-shirt that said Sissy Blue. Excellent troll job by UCLA. Fantastic marketing. I'm sure if they've made those shirts, they're already sold out. They should be passing them out throughout the rest of the season. Go Sissy Blue. I love it. Great job. I get your thoughts as they are a rival of yours, but also that's pretty fantastic, right?
Yeah. I mean, I don't like UCLA because because they're UCLA. And however, they've often made fun of like the powder blue. Yeah. I haven't heard it called Sissy Blue, but that's what Orgeron said. The other thing that strikes me, Ed Orgeron spent many years at USC playing UCLA. So I think the hatred that I have for UCLA, I think Orgeron had a little bit of that, back when he was a defensive coordinator and for a while interim head coach for the USC Trojans. So that was a huge win for them over LSU. But you're right. The troll game, I got to give props where props are due, as you just did, to the UCLA Bruins. That's funny. And
locker room celebrations were spread across the internet as well. But Ed, again, can't we have this conversation with a lot of people? And this isn't bad, right? You didn't do anything illegal, but cameras are everywhere and they're on you all the time. Those fans riled you up. You responded appropriately in their mind, and they ran with it throughout the entire game. And with that loss, I think Sissy Blue is becoming the new thing for UCLA, and they're going to lean in it hard as they should. There it is, today's Salty Shakedown.
Another outstanding Salty Shakedown. Lots of information there from the sports world to digest. And, you brought up LSU earlier in the show, Shannon, and you got to wonder if they have a bad year. Now that, they did recently win that national championship. There's been some controversy around the program. I can't imagine that Ed Orgeron's job would be in jeopardy, would it? I mean, they're so close to having that Joe Burrow season and an undefeated national championship. I mean, he's not in trouble, is he? I mean, if they have an awful year and they're 0-1 now, is he in trouble?
He's not in trouble for football yet, but some of his extracurriculars have come into question lately, thanks to him willingly taking pictures with people and then those people then posting them on the internet, and him getting kind of scrutinized for that.
Yeah.
And, I know there was a huge, it wasn't just Joe Burrow, right? They lost a ton of people to that draft class, and rightfully so, because it was a talented bunch. And then last year, you obviously had COVID. You had some players deciding to not play, but it's not looking great. It's not looking great.
Going to be really fascinating to follow them. And, you brought it up earlier, Colin Cowherd saying you've got like a 7-year window to be dominant in college football before you're going to go on a downswing and you're going to have to rebuild a little bit. So this may be the downturn. And you just think about that great team just a couple of years ago, for them to be on the downward trend right now already, seemingly. That's a little frightening for them. Something else I do want to bring up before we dive back into the Texas Longhorns and Taylor Estes coming up here just after the top of the hour. We kind of saw it coming, Shannon, but we now know who the starting quarterback is for the Houston Texans. How do you feel about Tyrod? It's interesting. I've always called him Tyrod Taylor, but Mark Vandermeer, and he would know because he's there, it says Tyrod. So I even though I say Tyrod all the time, maybe he pronounces it Tyrod Taylor. I got to figure that one out if we're going to be saying his name a bunch this season.
What about just TT or something?
Yeah, there you go.
Not surprising. Again, it's almost like the Trevor Lawrence thing. It's almost surprising that you felt like you had to announce it.
Yeah.
But he deserves it. I mean, with all he's been through and all he's done for he's a great quarterback. He's just never really been a franchise guy. So I wish him success. And obviously they've got the Jags this weekend, so it shouldn't be too difficult to get things going on the right foot. We'll just have to see. I'm rooting for him though.
Yeah, Davis Mills was the quarterback competing with him. They think Davis Mills could be a big thing in the future as he progresses. And again, we go into the regular season beginning this weekend, Shannon, and Deshaun Watson. We're still waiting to see what the heck happens with Deshaun Watson, in the courts, and B, do the Texans trade him somewhere?
Did I read that he was not practicing because he was having medical treatment assistance?
I missed that. I missed that.
Like from doing what?
Yeah.
And
if you're having medical treatment, let's hope that they are male doctors and nurses attending to you, Deshaun. If they're women, do not touch them or ask them to touch you.
Don't even look at them. Don't speak to them. Don't do nothing.
It's going to be fascinating. 22 accusers. I mean, it's where there's smoke, there's fire. Certainly when there's 22 little fires there, if not big fires.
Does he stand on the sideline during the games?
Great question. That's
to get paid, you got to show up. But
yeah, we're going to have to look for that. All right, coming up, let's go deep into the Texas Longhorns. Taylor Estes of Horns 24/7 talks about the big win next. It's the Chris Duel Show. Woo! Woo! I'll be back in a sec. I'm going to freshen up I think I'm going to move into iced tea now because it's caffeine as well. Got to get my caffeine fix. We're going to talk Longhorns with Taylor Estes next. She is outstanding. Woo! 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 If anybody is new joining us on the video feed, welcome in. Let me double check here.
Taylor's ready. And according to ESPN, Dak Prescott's 6.25 base salary converted into a signing bonus, which gives the team $5 million in cap room.
Nice. That just broke. Okay.
That's from Field Yates.
Okay. Frank Valdez, Warren Wheeler, Jason Paniagua, Kevin Monk, Robert Almaraz, Chris Gonzalez, Foamfoot 420, Lucinda Sullivan, Neil Cole, Beth Settle, Hector Gomez, Luisa Alanis, Tracy Bogert, Eddie Fisher, Steve Duraco, Anthony Del Toro, Clint Proctor, Ralph Balderas. Welcome in, everybody. Here we go. Taylor Estes, the managing editor of Horns 24/7.
Now, Chris Duel.
The Labor Day weekend has come to an end, but what a Labor Day weekend it was. What a weekend of college football, highlighted for most of us by the Texas Longhorns win over Louisiana 38-18 as the Steve Sarkisian era begins with a win, with a resounding win, with a 20-point win over a ranked team, as Louisiana came in ranked at number 23. Texas came in at number 21. We love talking Texas Longhorns with Taylor Estes. Nobody better to talk Longhorns with, as she is the managing editor at Horns 24/7 on a Taco Tuesday. Taylor Estes, how are you this morning?
Hey, Chris, I'm doing well. How are you doing?
Very, very well. And certainly the Texas Longhorns on Saturday doing very well with the big 38-18 victory. Your thoughts on the quarterbacks, as we got to see both of them play? Hudson Card, of course, the starter, and Casey Thompson. How did the quarterbacks look to you on Saturday?
You know, I think that it was a really good debut for Hudson Card. It kind of got off to a little bit of a slow start in the first quarter, but you kind of expect that. I mean, he's a redshirt freshman, his first ever collegiate start, since he's been at Texas. So overall, going 14-21, 224 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. I think that is a huge, really solid starting point. And then, Casey Thompson comes in off the bench and was really efficient himself as well. So, I know there's the quarterback battle seems to be almost like a dividing thing among the Texas fan base. Some people are, team Card, some people are team, Thompson. But overall, I think if you're a Texas fan, you've got to look at what the Longhorns have in the quarterback room right now and feel really good, because there are two guys who effectively could help this team win ball games, and that's huge. And, it's going to take a lot for Steve Sarkisian, I think, to keep those guys engaged. But at this point, I think that if you're a Texas fan, you have to be very pleased with the position itself right now.
Well, it's got to be a nice feeling for Hudson to have a guy like Bijan Robinson in the backfield. He, of course, did not disappoint this weekend. What did you see out of him and all of the hype that now surrounds him after that Week 1 performance?
I mean, I think that everybody who watched Texas, especially late last season, saw the trajectory of what Bijan Robinson can be. And, having a running back like Bijan Robinson is so crucial, especially if you're breaking in a first-time starting quarterback, whether it was, Hudson Card or Casey Thompson. Neither of them have ever started a game prior to the season opener now, with Card getting his first collegiate start. But a guy like that, who's such a workhorse and such a dominant player, I mean, Steve Sarkisian has talked about the similarities that he has seen between Bijan Robinson and Reggie Bush. And, this is a true sophomore who really didn't get a ton of action in his first season. He did, as the season wore on in 2020. But him being the guy, the go-to guy is huge. But also, in addition to that, Shannon, you look at just the running back room in general. I mean, this is one of the most stacked running back rooms I think I've covered in my 10 years covering the University of Texas. And there's no doubt in my mind, in that time, Bijan Robinson is probably the best athlete I've covered since, I joined the Texas beat. So overall, he did exactly what you expected, 20 carries, 103 yards, a rushing touchdown. Plus, he was really effective in the receiving game, too, with the 4 targets, caught all 4 balls that were targeted to him, 73 yards, and another touchdown there. So Texas really has a huge weapon in Bijan Robinson, but it's not even just him. I really think that the backups and Roschon Johnson and Keelan Robinson can make this running back room be very elite, and it only can get better. If that was game 1, you expect there to be improvements from game 1 to game 2. So I think that Texas fans should be very excited about where the running back room is leading with Bijan Robinson.
She's Taylor Estes with Horns 24/7. And back to the quarterbacks for a moment, Taylor, as promised by Steve Sarkisian, we did see both quarterbacks, obviously, the lion's share of the snaps coming from Hudson Card, but Casey Thompson looked good, 4 out of 5, 41 yards and a touchdown. Do you think we're going to continue to see both quarterbacks, or do you think Hudson Card took just a major step forward and eventually, he'll be the quarterback from beginning to end?
That's a great question, and that's something that, I like to joke that Steve Sarkisian gets paid $5 million a year for making these tests. This is a very, it's a good position, I guess, to be in. But, seeing Casey Thompson come off the bench, seeing him come in a little bit earlier than I think a lot of people may have expected him to come in, I think that was a way for Steve Sarkisian to really keep him engaged. I wouldn't be surprised if they continue to, especially if they're leading, to continue to see both of the quarterbacks playing games. But at this point, there's really no reason to question Hudson Card as the starter. But he is a huge test coming up this weekend, first road game. And it's not just any road game. It's a road game against a former rival. There's some bad blood, between Arkansas and Texas dating back to the Southwest Conference days. Obviously, the players that are on the roster now have no idea about that because they weren't even a thought in, a blink of the eye, basically, at that point. But I really do think that this is going to be a really good test to see Hudson Card's how well he can handle a hostile environment, going to Fayetteville, Arkansas, playing the Razorbacks. And honestly, talking to Steve Sarkisian on Monday, he talked about how Hudson is very, very even-keeled, and that's something that has really benefits to him, works to his benefit, being a quarterback, not getting too high or too low on himself. And that's going to be a test. We're going to see how even-keeled he can be on the road this weekend when he faces Arkansas.
Yeah, the Arkansas game looks like it's going to be a great one. Apparently, only standing room tickets available. They're going to do a stripe out as well for Longhorns' first trip to Fayetteville since 2004. Now, I know we have a small sample size after only having that one game against Louisiana. But what area would you like to see improvement in as they head to Fayetteville this weekend?
I think that you have to look at special teams a little bit, with Cameron Dicker missing that field goal attempt, and then the 2 block in the back penalties that happened on Deshaun Jameson's punt return that would have went for a touchdown had those penalties not occurred on that play. I think that that's something you really need to address, I think. But the good thing is Texas has one of the best, if not the best, special teams coordinator in the country, and Jeff Banks at his disposal. I'd be pretty surprised if you see those type of errors, I would say, this weekend in Fayetteville. But, I think that if you clean up those penalties, make sure that Cameron Dicker does what he's supposed to do. I guess we could call him Dicker the kicker. You may as well call him Dicker the punter, too. Outstanding as a punter against Louisiana. But, I think that those type of just kind of mental errors, miscues need to be cleaned up a little bit. But with a coach like Jeff Banks leading the charge there, I think that, Texas fans shouldn't be too worried about that.
And speaking of Cameron Dicker, Taylor, Shannon and I were talking about him earlier in the show, his missing the first field goal. And do you think maybe I would imagine, he's been such a great kicker previously. I would imagine he was in a certain game day rhythm for all of the previous game days when he wasn't punting. Now that he's punting, I wonder if maybe that affects his rhythm. Do you think there might be any issues with his kicking, the fact that he's also the punter, or do you think he's just going to ultimately just be as good of a punter as he is a kicker?
I think he's probably as good as a punter as he is a kicker. I think that with Jeff Banks leading the special teams unit, I think if there was any question of if the punting duties were going to impact his kicking responsibilities, then he wouldn't be the punter right now, because Texas does have other options in Brian Buszewski, and then they have a true freshman in Isaac Pearson, who came in with the 2021 signing class. But, I think if there was ever any question if the punting duties was going to impact Dicker's kicking, then he would not be doing it. So I think it was probably just game one jitters, first field goal attempt of the season, missed 45 yards, but he did follow it up with a 49-yard field goal that was good in the fourth quarter. So, I think it was probably just a little bit of a hiccup. But if there is any question, I believe that Jeff Banks will not have him be the puncher if there's any question that kicking is going to be impacted, because obviously, you want to score touchdowns, but you need a kicker who's going to also do his job and make field goals when it matters most. So I think it's probably not a non-factor right now, but if that does continue, it's definitely going to be something that Texas needs to address.
Taylor, talk to me about the Texas defense, because I felt like they were giving a lot of space to Louisiana, allowing them to get out into the flat, allowing those short 3-4 yard passes, and then trying to tackle or to make that big play. Is that part of Sark's scheme, or is that something they're just working on as the season goes? Especially in the later half of the game, felt like they maybe were letting up a little bit.
Yeah, and Steve Sarkisian did talk about that in his Monday press conference. He said that he wasn't too thrilled with the team's finish to the game, because they did give up some bigger plays, especially late in the game. And he's talked about all fall camp. They make their practice the hardest in the fourth quarter, the final periods of practice, whatever you want to call it, for that reason. So, I think there's a lot of things that have to be, worked out with a new coaching staff, especially. But overall, I think, the defense did its job, and, holding Louisiana to, what was it, like, I think it was 76 yards on 29 rushing attempts and 282 yards passing, only getting us 2 touchdowns. I mean, you have to be pleased with that performance, but obviously there's definitely, they've got to make sure that they're ready in the fourth quarter. I mean, this is also a team, though, that has given up a lot in the past when it's come late in the game. And so it's probably just going to be something that the coaches are going to have to work through. And I think it's more so than anything is probably just kind of getting more into a rhythm with the new coaching staff in place.
Talking Longhorns with Taylor Estes, the managing editor at Horns 24/7. And Taylor, you brought up the next game, which is going to be Saturday at Arkansas, at Fayetteville, a 6:00 start. It's going to be on ESPN. And as you said, a hostile environment, which is going to be really interesting, especially to get a look at these young quarterbacks and how they do there. But, if they can come away with a win at Arkansas, I'm looking at their upcoming schedule. Then they've got Rice, which is interesting because Arkansas opened up against Rice and beat them 38-17. You would expect Texas is going to probably beat Rice, probably then beat Texas Tech, I would think, although Tech got a big win at Houston. So, I mean, if they can get this win at Arkansas, and I know first things first, but, Texas has, I think, an opportunity if they can start 2-0. They might begin this season with a pretty darn good record headed into the TCU game and the Oklahoma game.
Yeah, absolutely. My coworker brought this up to me yesterday. Chip Brown brought this up to me. If Steve Sarkisian and Texas can win this game, Steve Sarkisian will be the first coach since Fred Akers to go 2-0 in his first year as the head coach of Texas.
Wow.
Crazy to think about. That's a stat. When he said that, I was like, wow. And then you start going back, and it's like, that's 100% true. So, I think this is really, that will be huge for momentum. And also, I think that will be huge in recruiting too, because with this new staff, they really only had 1 month in the month of June to be able to be face-to-face with recruits. And that's definitely hurt Texas a little bit. There's a lot of questions. It's easy right now for other schools to kind of say, point to the past and say, look at, what Texas did. Every time they're hyped up, they fall short of expectations and all of that. Use a lot of negative recruiting against Texas. So I think that this could definitely be huge for Texas if they can come away with a win in Arkansas. As you mentioned, they will then have to face Rice. This is a better Rice team too, to give them credit than Rice has been in the past. But first things first, if they take care of business at Arkansas, it could really be a momentum changer, both in the play on the field and also in recruiting for Texas.
Taylor, any shockers for you out of the Big 12 over the weekend? Obviously, the Big 12 faring pretty well. Only one team loses, but that team wasn't Kansas. And Oklahoma towing the line with that Tulane team at home in Norman.
I think that was probably the biggest shocker, was the Oklahoma game. Tulane was winning in that game, and I think a lot of people were looking at that like, whoa, what's going on there in Norman? But I still think you got to give the benefit of the doubt to Lincoln Riley and Oklahoma. They've won, how many 6 straight Big 12 titles. So, they gave them one hiccup. I guess, you kind of go through the motions. You don't really expect that from a, Heisman Trophy contender in Spencer Rattler. But if there's any coach that's going to get an offense cleaned up, it's going to be Lincoln Riley. So I think that was probably the biggest surprise to me. But again, I'm not going to take one game and think that the Sooners are terrible or anything, just because, history has proven otherwise. Anytime that there has been hiccups, it seems like they always seem to have an answer to it and a solution to fix the problems that they have. But if I'm looking at the overall thing, I would say when Oklahoma was down by Tulane, I was like, whoa, what is going on there?
Yeah, let's hope it means that Oklahoma is susceptible, and hopefully that'll be good news for the Longhorns down the road when they meet them a little bit later in the schedule. Taylor, I was talking with Shannon, and obviously Shannon, like you, was at the football game on Saturday, and she was talking about the stadium, and granted, it was hot and it was sweltering, but she mentioned, down around that end zone where some people could have gone into the air conditioning, there were some empty seats around the stadium. Do you think, as we talked about, that maybe Texas gets off to a really good start here and wins a few of the first football games, and obviously they would ascend in the rankings if that continued. Your thoughts on the crowd at the stadium and Longhorn fans? Is there? Do you feel an excitement building now that we're moving into the new era with head coach Steve Sarkisian?
Chris, I have to be honest. I was unable to go to the game because I have COVID right now. So
Oh no.
Home.
Okay.
So I know impeccable timing, right? The first week of COVID starts my house. So, but I had to watch it from home, so I did not really get the in-person atmosphere experience. From the TV standpoint, I will say it did look a little weird to see a lot of empty seats there, but it was so hot. It was 100 degrees. When you're in the sun. I remember when this game was scheduled and they said that it was going to be a 3:30 kickoff. It's like, wow, that stinks for Steve Sarkisian's first game is going to be in like the dead heat of summer, basically, and 100-degree weather. So that's exactly what it was. So I think that there's definitely going to be some building excitement. I do believe that had it not been so hot, there probably would have been a lot more people in the stadium. But I was texting with Shannon actually, earlier in the week or over the weekend, and I said, man, like if I were a Texas fan, I probably wouldn't want to go to that game either because it was, brutally hot. So I think anytime that teams win, it's going to bring people into the stadium. And so, if Texas can get this win on the road in Arkansas, I would imagine that the stadium will continue to fill out, and especially if they're night games, more so than 3:30 starts in early September. But I do believe that, looking at just the overall product, I mean, Texas beat a ranked opponent by 20 points, and they held a ranked opponent to under 20 points, and that's something that we haven't really been able to say about Texas for the last several years. I mean, they fielded a lot of good defenses, but, they did their job in a way that we didn't always see under the Tom Herman era. They handedly took care of a top 25 ranked opponent, and that's huge. And I think fans need to pay attention to those type of details.
Absolutely. So far, so good for the Texas Longhorns with that 38-18 win over Louisiana. And as Taylor mentions, it is on to Arkansas Saturday night. Taylor Estes is a great source for Texas Longhorns news on Twitter at Taylor Estes 24/7. And of course, follow Horns 24/7 at Horns 24/7. And how's the YouTube broadcast going? You still getting some a lot of viewers on the YouTube broadcasts?
We are. So, I'm kind of worried that I made that joke about having a shock and a beer if we get to 5,000 subscribers before the Texas OU game, because we're kind of on pace right now. So, that's definitely growing right now. It's a new product. We're going to be adding more and more to our video production over at Horns 24/7. So it's something to keep an eye on. And
be sure to look for that on YouTube as well. Follow all of the coverage from Taylor Estes, from Chip, and that whole great team covering the Texas Longhorns. Taylor Estes, always outstanding. Thanks so much for taking the time. And we look forward to talking to you hopefully after the Horns are 2-0 after a victory over Arkansas on Saturday night. Thanks so much.
Thanks so much for having me, guys.
Absolutely. Taylor Estes at Taylor Estes 24/7 on Twitter. And Shannon, again, I'm looking at this schedule. If you can beat Arkansas, and I have a feeling they should on Saturday night. I mean, Paul Alexander won't like it, but I think they beat Rice. I think they beat Texas Tech, and then at TCU, that's the week before the Oklahoma game, which is October 9th. So it would be really nice to be 4-0 heading into the TCU game.
Yeah, and very, very manageable. Was it Campbell who said Texas probably would drop one of their first two games?
Yes.
So
yeah, take that. And imagine where they might be in the rankings if they can be 4-0 headed into the TCU game. So very, very cool. Well, while the Longhorns fared well, so did the UTSA Roadrunners. They got a huge victory. I think maybe one of the biggest victories in program history. We'll see what Andy has to say about that. He had the call on Saturday night from Champaign, Illinois. Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics, will talk the Roadrunners' victory over Illinois and what is next for them with Andy Everett next. Don't go anywhere. We're with you till 9. She's the salty one, Shannon Sweeney, Dave Ayler making the show go. You're listening to the Chris Duel Show. Woo! All right. Got to edit a couple of pieces of audio here. Oh, that's loud. Let's see. Second one. It's 32. Come on. Good morning, John Williams from Dallas. Woo! Hey, Dave, I totally forgot. Andy sent me highlights. If I email you highlights, can you pick? He's got like the final call of the game. So when we come back, if you can, with the comeback music. So let me grab that right now, and I'm going to forward it to you. I should have done that before the show. I apologize. Oh, come on, email. Don't do that to me. There it goes. Okay, I just sent him. I think one of them says like final call, and I think it's him calling the end of the game. So grab that one unless you see another one that you like better. Let's see. Show. Yeah, it says final call UTSA wins.
Yeah, I'm done.
Okay, thanks, man. Sorry about the late notice. I totally forgot that I had those. Okay, where was I here? Do that again. 2 left.
You want me to play that coming back?
Yeah, just kind of over the music as we come back, as we bring him in.
Okay. Well, what I can do is I'll play that, and I'll drop the rejoin,
Okay.
and so you can just start talking with that highlights over.
Cool. Okay. Thank you.
Andy's ready.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for doing that. I appreciate it.
No problem.
All right, we've got Andy Everett here to talk a little UTSA football.
Of course, I have ABBA coming back for
Beautiful. Oh, and I might have to bring up the new ABBA album coming out. Let's see here. There we go.
Here we go. 2 seconds to go in the game. Trips right, one left, Love in the backfield, snap to Sitkowski. He will roll to his right. He'll fire towards the end zone. Lots of shirts down there. Out the back of the end zone, incomplete. Ball game over. UTSA wins 37-30. That's a Roadrunner winner.
That's Andy Everett with the call of the final seconds of the big UTSA Roadrunners victory at Illinois on Saturday night, 37-30. It's the Chris Duel Show with Shannon Salty Sweeney, and the voice of UTSA Athletics, Andy Everett, is on the line. Andy, how'd you feel in those final seconds when you knew that UTSA pulled it off and got the big victory?
Relieved that they didn't make a Hail Mary catch to tie the game and send it to overtime, and certainly very proud of a football team that's worked extremely hard for the last couple of years to put themselves in a position to beat a Big Ten team, and not just I think we look at Illinois and say, yeah, when was the last time they won a Big Ten championship? And they're not that good, but they have Big Ten talent. And they recruit Big Ten players. And their offensive line's got 3 guys that are probably going to get drafted. And so they're a pretty good team. They're going to play Ohio State and Michigan and Penn State and Wisconsin and all the teams in the Big Ten. And they're probably going to be maybe 500 against those teams. But that doesn't take away how good of a team they were. And I think it's the best win that UTSA's ever had when you consider it's on the road against a Power 5 conference school. And a team that's, if Illinois were in Conference USA, they'd be favored to win the league. So they beat a really good football team on Saturday.
Now, Andy, you say thank goodness for it not going into overtime, and obviously that has to do with UTSA getting the win and not needing to play any longer than they had to. But as a broadcaster, I just wanted to gauge your thoughts on overtime. Is it something that you find exciting to do, or are you ready to get out of there at that point?
Well, it kind of depends. I mean, I think when you're the team that comes from behind and tie the game and you still have a chance, you're really excited. Hey, we got a chance to still win the game. I think if you've been in the lead for the entire game like UTSA was, I think overtime would have given them a little bit of momentum, and who knows what happens in overtime. I do like the college football overtime rule. I wish the NFL would adopt it. I know why they don't, and they'll never admit that it's because of gambling, but it is, because then your over and under numbers could be way out of whack if somebody scores 4 touchdowns in overtime. I think the overtime, like last year against Texas State, UTSA had the game won in regulation, then almost lost it in regulation, had it won in overtime, almost lost it in overtime, and ended up winning it in overtime. So I think when you have those kind of games, it's kind of fun, but it's also a little nerve-wracking too.
He's Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA athletics. And Andy, I tweeted right after the game that, if there's a bigger win in program history, I am unaware of it. Now, just a few moments ago, you alluded to that as well. You said you think it may be the biggest win in program history because it was a Big Ten team on the road. Factor in that they had played a week earlier and it was the first game of the season for UTSA. Factor in that Illinois beat Nebraska just last week. And nobody would, you've called every game. So, you stand by this being the biggest win in program history?
Yeah, there were people on Facebook this weekend that said, what about the Houston game in 2014? Illinois is better than that team was, and UTSA is better than that UTSA team was. And then you look at 2017 when they won on the road at Baylor. Baylor was horrible that year. They were ranked in the bottom 30 of the nation, and it was Matt Rule's first year, and they were basically starting over after the Art Briles era. And so I think when you look at the best team that UTSA has ever played and beaten is this one. They've obviously played some Arizona schools and Oklahoma State and some of those teams and played well and didn't win. But get a win on the road. This was the best team from top to bottom that UTSA has ever won against.
Andy, we had talked to Coach about the running backs and that it would be running back by committee, even though they have a guy named Sincere McCormick who has done a thing or two in previous games. He, of course, did a lot of heavy lifting with 117 yards, but he's the only one that didn't score a TD as a rusher. Talk to us about that threesome they have in the backfield.
Well, it starts with Frank Harris at quarterback, but you have, I think, Sincere McCormick is an NFL talent. People say he's undersized. People say he's a tenth of a second too slow, but that doesn't measure what he can do on the field. And his ability to run between the tackles is really good for somebody of that stature. Brendan Brady is a really good football player too, and I think if Sincere wasn't here, UTSA would be just fine with Brendan Brady. Although he last year was injured to the point to where he missed most of the season, and so. Sincere's still the guy, number one. He's going to carry the ball 20, 25 times a game, but UTSA would like to rush it 40. And between Brendan Brady and Frank Harris, they're going to get the other 15 carries. I think they want Frank Harris to be a little bit judicious as to when he does carry the ball. Anytime your quarterback's out there by himself, you risk injury. And I don't think they're concerned about him getting hurt, but I just don't think you want your quarterback to take unnecessary hits. So those three are great, and the cupboard's not bare. There's several behind them when their days are done that are going to be able to rush the football well for UTSA.
Talking UTSA Roadrunners with Andy Everett. And Andy, I'm looking at this morning's San Antonio Express News, and the front page sports article about the Roadrunners say that Coach Jeff Traylor's message now for the team and the coaching staff is, quote, don't eat the cheese. Don't eat the cheese, meaning don't believe the hype. Now, we hear you and I and a lot of people saying this is the biggest win in UTSA program history. Of course, we talked at length because it was a big deal that Dave Campbell's Texas Football Magazine picks UTSA to go 10-2. Certainly expectations have risen with this victory, I think, among fans and students and alumni. What do you think Jeff Traylor and this staff has to do now to keep this team from not being too high? I mean, you've got Lamar coming up on Saturday, the home opener at the Alamo Dome. You would think if you can go on the road and beat Illinois, that you're going to beat Lamar at home. That would be my thinking. How do you keep this team focused and not too high on itself after such a big win?
Well, I think Jeff has done a great job of that for a long time since he got here. And when UTSA was having success last year and people were giving them praise, the don't eat the cheese message was something that he came up with and said, don't believe all this stuff. Start to focus on the next game. And it may be a lesser opponent on paper, or they may be ranked over than you, or you may be a 5-touchdown favorite or whatever the line's going to be for Lamar. But don't worry about that. Just go play football. Just go do what you do. And I think a lot of times I think it's human nature for athletes to overlook something or to get so high from one week that they don't stay at the level that they need to the next week. And, I can go back to the very first year of UTSA football. The Roadrunners came in and beat a pretty good, they hadn't played a game in 2 years. They've just been practicing, and they beat Northeastern Oklahoma State. And then the following week, they had to play McMurray, and McMurray had a really seasoned team, and everybody was like, well, you beat these guys, you're going to beat the Division III team. And they didn't. The quarterback just torched them the whole game, and they ended up losing by double digits, I think. I remember those early UTSA teams always saying, remember McMurray, we don't want to go do what we did against that team again. I think this group of athletes, and I think athletes in general, most of them don't care about point spreads. Most of them don't care about who their opponent is. It's a nameless, faceless opponent. And the most important thing, I think, is 2 things. Number one is that they just focus on doing what they do. And I'm really hoping that San Antonio turns out and says, you know what, it's time to support this football team again. This team is fun to watch. This team is going to win a lot of games. And I understand that we still are in the COVID era, and there's a lot of people that probably are a little bit leery about going out in public or going into a dome stadium. But you have the ability to social distance in there. You can wear masks in there. I'm sure at some point that will probably be, it's not required, certainly suggested during games. And, go cheer on the Roadrunners, because this team is gotten back to where I think everybody wanted it to be. And if there could be 25,000, 30,000 people in the house on Saturday, I think that would give this team an emotional lift as well.
And I love this concept of don't eat the cheese, because week 0, UTSA got to sit back and watch Illinois defeat Nebraska. And then they had to know that they were going to their house to play a team that was already 1-0 and high on the season. UTSA goes, they win that game, and now they come home for their home opener against a very similar scenario in Lamar, who has not played yet this season. So there is a little bit of that unknown. Tell us what you know about Lamar and what areas UTSA may need to beef up on, because it's an area that Lamar just seems to succeed at.
Well, Lamar has played a game. They played a Thursday night game last week against the Division III opponent, I believe, or a class under them, and won the game. Just barely kept getting an early scouting report on them. They run a lot of options. They try to slow the game down. Jeff Traylor mentioned yesterday they play like Army, in that they run a lot of traps and a lot of movement and try to get you. And their game plan is going to be just hold onto the ball as much as we can. I mean, I would imagine Lamar will throw it more than Army does, which is maybe 3 or 4 times a game. But they can't get the ball to UTSA's offense unless let it be a track meet. And that's what UTSA wants it to be. One of the keys last week against Illinois was for them to run a lot of plays. Illinois wanted to slow UTSA down and keep them under 55, 60 plays, and UTSA ran 82 and made an Illinois team that wants to only run 50 or 60 plays run 78 to stay in the game with them. And so the tempo and the pace was always at UTSA's level, and that's certainly what they want it to be going forward the rest of the year.
Andy, a great call on Saturday night. I was listening. A great win for UTSA, and hopefully just the start of a big season for the UTSA Roadrunners. Have a great morning, and once again, congratulations to you on a great call, and congratulations to everybody associated with the UTSA Roadrunners on a great opening win. And the guy who's called all the games, Andy, says it's the biggest win in program history, and I agree with him on that. Andy, thanks so much, man. Have a great day.
You got it.
All right. Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics. All right, Shannon, as we get ready, we're just ticking closer to 9:00 tonight, which is Hard Knocks, Dallas Cowboys, the finale, and of course, Thursday night, the NFL opener between the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And our poll question this morning with the big story, the big Cowboys news over the weekend, guard Zach Martin will not play due to the coronavirus. So that was a big motivation for our poll question this morning.
Yes, given what we know so far heading to this Thursday's game, we're asking what chances you give the Cowboys to beat the Bucs. We've got 7% now saying no problem, 42% saying slim, 16% saying none, and 33% saying snowball's chance in hell.
But again, doing some math here, Shannon, 49, darn near 50%.
Yep.
Say either no problem or a slim chance. And so they give the Cowboys a chance to win. And as daunting a task as it is, the Buccaneers bringing everybody back, they're going to be sky high now. No Zach Martin for the Cowboys. Again, this isn't Lamar facing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is a Dallas Cowboys team that many people are picking to win the NFC East and a high octane offense.
You know how delusional I am is that over the weekend, we hear Dak saying, whether it's his foot, his arm, his mental, he is good and ready to go. He is prepared and excited. And I breathe that in and I exhale and I think, oh my gosh, this is going to be the best season of all time. And then on the other side, I hear Mike Evans talking about the Tampa Bay offense and how he and Tom have really connected. They're better than they were last year. They're going to continue to be better. And I think that's not true. There's no way that's true.
Yeah. And there's even some breaking Dak Prescott news this morning, sort of, Shannon. The Cowboys have converted $6.25 million of Dak Prescott's $9 million salary into a signing bonus. And that's going to create $5 million in cap space this year. And add $3.75 million in net cap base for 2020. So Cowboys, and they've done a little bit of this in the offseason, kind of finagling the contracts to kind of create some more cap space. So that's an interesting development.
Could it be that they're actually going to get a quarterback?
Please.
That's not named Will Grier.
Oh, God.
Cooper Rush just turn it over?
I don't trust them to do that, but
$5 million to get you Cam Newton.
You know what?
Get you Cam Newton.
Bag of Doritos. So yeah, I would take Cam Newton in a heartbeat or what they got right now as a backup quarterback. But maybe we'll learn more tonight on Hard Knocks, Shannon. Maybe we'll learn more about that backup quarterback philosophy, and you and I will lift an adult beverage into the air when they cut Cooper Rush, or excuse me, Ben DiNucci. Although he's coming back, came back in the practice squad. So, but it'll still be must-see TV for me. So, Shannon Salty Sweeney, spectacular as always. Let's do this again in 21 hours. We'll talk Hard Knocks tomorrow.
Yes, sir. I'll be here.
Woo! And we will get an inch closer to Thursday Night Football. Dave Ayler playing hurt with a broken toe. You still managed to make it through to gut it out. Thank you, sir.
I'll gut it out tomorrow, too.
And I hope your toe gets better. And
Thank
if
you.
not, just take lots of happy drugs and you'll feel better. Our thanks to Taylor Askus of Horns 24/7, Andy Everett, the voice of UTSA Athletics. Football is here. We'll talk a lot more football tomorrow as well. Have a great Taco Tuesday, everybody. Adios.